How do you spend the bye week? Like, what's the self-scout and that look like for you? And you find anything that you feel like might be helpful?
Yeah, the self-scout thing to me, like you watch the game each week, right? And then you go back through and you kind of get an idea of what you've done as you're going into your next game, because it's always trying to, what is our opponent seeing? But it gave you a chance to just go back from the beginning and watch it more in like chronological order, each phase. And so able to find, a couple things. It was interesting when you take a look, like, from a number standpoint. This is the first time I'll go look at like the stats, okay, like exactly where are we and that sort of thing, so that it's not a judge view of my opinion, it's actually like what the numbers say. And so when you go back and you look and you're like, all right, well, the numbers aren't great in our coverage units, the punt and the kickoff stuff, and then you go back and you say, okay, why? And obviously you go back to, we had a poor game early in the season, and you can never take away one play, for example, but it's actually encouraging that we've improved. And when you look at it, and so, for example, like if you take the punt return against Seattle away for a touchdown, that puts your net up above 42, and it puts you like the average return you're giving up is like 7 yards, and those are kind of like what your season's goal is. So you can't eliminate it, right? It does exist, but at least it's encouraging that we've shown that we've improved, and guys are really starting to understand what we want to do. And then you go back and you say, okay, well, what can we look at, and what are some other things we need to improve on? And I think two of the things that stood out to me were we had a couple too many missed tackles that allows more yardage than should be. And so instead of giving up a return, like even in the Carolina game, like we should have him tackled at the 28-yard line. And all of a sudden you miss a tackle, and now he's at the 34, and those start adding up. So we need to tackle better. We need to eliminate the penalties in the return game. We've had a couple that are effort penalties, a face mask here or something that happens. Like those are going to happen, but some of the holding penalties in the return game, negate a good return. Or now instead of, even if it's on a fair catch, for example, and the ball being on the 30, you're backed up 10 yards, now you're on the 20. So if we can improve our tackling and eliminate the penalties going forward and continue to make the improvements we've made in the coverage units, I think, we'll be happy of the improvement we continue to make.
I feel like you just answered 90% of this, but I was going to ask you, like, it seems like you've kind of like really settled the waters, gotten it real tight, like the last few 3-4 weeks. Like, is there a change from like the beginning, or is it just kind of like sticking with it and kind of just cleaning it up as it goes?
I don't know that there's been much schematical change in what we've done. I think it's a combination of there's been some different players who are doing it, and then there's been the same players, but they now have an understanding because, there's some younger guys that really hadn't done it at this level before. And so I've been pleased with how we're working. I think, like I said, I'll go back to the Seattle game because that was a wake-up call, I think, for some guys that didn't understand, and it really changed how we go out and we practice every single day as well, like the emphasis and how every little detail matters. So I think those have been the biggest reasons why. Look, he has – one, he's a natural catcher. I feel good about the way he's able to track the ball and he's able to catch it on a punt return standpoint, right? And then two, even when he filled in last year for us after Sheed had gotten hurt, I mean, he averaged, I think it was like 11 yards per punt return, which was really good. He had, one should have had a chance for a touchdown where he just steps out of bounds there. He has the ability to see things and it developed for him. And I think that goes back to the cumulative reps. I mean, he was outstanding in college, and I remember, when I was at Penn State, we actually played Washington in the Fiesta Bowl, and he was the returner. And I remember, for a couple of weeks thinking to myself, golly, this is like the all-time touchdown guy. And we got to, my first game as coordinator was that game, and you have to go defend him. And fortunately, we were able to kick all fair catches. He didn't get a chance.
Do you have any thoughts on Jaquan Jackson and just his returnability? Like, is he someone that you had scouted coming in or anything like that?
He's someone, I don't have a strong feeling, good or bad. It's unknown. I remember he was back here at a workout at one point, and I thought he did a good job of catching the ball. And, he just getting here. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and spend much time with him or go back through him to refresh my memory of what he's done. But I'm always a fan. The more returners you can get in the building, as you kind of need them all the way things happen in this league. You have an opinion on?
I mean, he made a lot of plays in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His bias. He was an employee. Intern.
He did a podcast with us.
I understand. No, but not yet. But I will. I'll get a chance to go rewatch some of all that sort of stuff. And he's getting his feet wet now. But the more returns we can have in the building, the better off.
Is anything behind Blake kind of right the ship? He's made 7 out of his last 8, the longest being in Chicago. Not trying to like set you up or anything here, but.
No, you know what? Honestly, I don't. I just think he went through a little bit of a rough patch, and it's one of those things. I think all players go through it at different positions, and obviously in the specialist position, it's just magnified, because of the limited opportunities. And when you go out there, you have to go perform. But it wasn't anything like, and I know, it was practice, but it wasn't like anything that was showing up where there were a lot of misses in practice. He just went into the games, and he had a couple that missed here or there, and we believe in him, and I want to continue to stick by him because I do believe that he has a really, really bright future. I think he's excellent at what he does, and I think the way you just look, and I look at like some other positions, for example, there's players in this league that are on other teams right now that are really performing well, and maybe people had given up on them too soon, and nothing more sticks out. You go look at a couple of quarterbacks that are playing really good football right now, and I know they're different positions, but a guy like Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield, like they had some rough patches, but there were people that believed in him, and maybe it had to be at a different place, and now it's coming and showing there. So I do think one of the things as a coach, if you truly believe in somebody because you know the work ethic, you see what they do, and you're willing to just ride it out with them because you feel that they're going to do well in the end.
I never really thought about it before until you were talking about it, but like how much does like continuity and communication and chemistry like play a factor in just like getting like peak performance out of it, and how do you deal with it like when there are moving parts and like someone's moving off special teams, someone's moving on, and that stuff?
Yeah, listen, that's part of all the special teams coaches' jobs, right? I mean, there is a lot of moving parts, and that may be for whatever reason of injury or trade or guys getting released or guys aren't doing well enough on offense and defense, and now another guy's active on game day. And so I think that's part of the puzzle that we have to put together. And when you go into a game, you have who's active on that 48, and it may be different each week, and trying to piece it together. And the more continuity we can have, and we've had a little bit more, I also think helps our success. And why you have the same guys in there in punt protection. You have two guys that are working next to each other all the time instead of a different guy every other week. It's kind of like an O-line that when they work together and have to pass rush twist or stuff like that. It's there's some things that come in the special teams as well.
What are your thoughts on we haven't talked to you since the Panthers game, the block with how do you assess that with Cam, obviously?
Yeah, look, it's a shame. I assess it as we really got unlucky. It's like you have a game-changing momentum play. You don't let them tie the game. You get a great block, and now all of a sudden it's their ball, first and goal, or first and 10 over. And it's a challenging situation, right? Because and we cover it. We watch him every week. And like I said, Cam knew the rule. He just lost sight of where he was, right? So, but the thing a lot of people may not know, right, is if the ball's blocked and it goes behind the line of scrimmage, both teams can advance it. Like the defense can scoop and score and go for a touchdown. If the offense picks it up behind the line of scrimmage, they can go run for a first down. And then if it goes over the line of scrimmage clearly, right, obviously then the defense can pick it up, but if they fumble it or muff it, an offense gets on it, it becomes their ball. But it's kind of like the no risk reward deal there. When it goes over the line of scrimmage, clearly it's pretty easy. Hey, we'll make a poison call, get away from it. We know we're going to get the ball at the block spot, and then it's that gray area. If all of a sudden, if the ball would have been a foot behind and now Carolina's own lineman picks it up and he's able to, if it was 4th and 1, go forward for a first down, it's a challenging spot for those guys right there, like what to do. And so he lost track of exactly where he was. But it was a good play by Shep. That's kind of thing that got overshadowed a little bit. And it was, again, just an outstanding effort. I think I talked to you guys before just about how proud I am when you watch our field goal block unit. We've gotten 2 so far this year, but just the effort and the disruption those guys are causing. All good? Appreciate it, guys.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
How do you spend your bye week? Like, what's the like self-scout process and all that stuff look like for you?
Yeah, just put all of our coaches on projects based on their area of responsibility, and then kind of combine all of that. And then by the end of the week, kind of look at our analytics too and see if it's all matching up. And then just make sure that, going into this week, we have a really strong sense of where we're at and where we need to go and how we need to get there. So I think Kellen's process and Mickey's process is really good here. And hopefully it'll lead to good things moving forward.
Are there ever like big breakthroughs in that, or is that kind of the thing that gets like media overrated, like the halftime speech, or like is it like do you ever have like an oh my god moment, or is it just kind of more like loose ends and things like that?
Well, I think anytime you have a little bit more time to study, there are going to be things that you see that you wouldn't see normally. I think all of us now are self-scouting during the week. You have to in order to reach your capacity. But I think with more time, there's just a little bit more perspective. And then I think when you put all of your coaching staff on certain projects, you're going to get different viewpoints as well. So I think that that's also important, that you're getting different viewpoints. And so you kind of put it all together, and then hopefully it leads to a good conclusion. So we're all trying to be as good as we can be. And I think when you just have some time like we just had, it just freshens you up and gives you the right perspective.
On like seeing if the analytics kind of match what you saw in the self-scout, like is that what sort of data are you using for that? And is that some sort of like a newer thing, or is that something you've been doing?
Yeah, throughout my career, just trying to match it up. There's so much information that you have now, and there's so many different specifics that you can study. So I think as a coach, you're trying to always let the silent tape talk to you first, and then you try to match up what the data, what the analytics are telling you, and hopefully those two things are the same. Sometimes, most of the time they are, but if there's differences, then you can see why. And so I think that, that's the great advantage that you have when you can study the numbers, because it goes both ways. You have to use both things to truly study yourself. And, I think that we do a good job of that here.
What do you think of Kirk Cousins at this stage of his career?
Yeah, I think Kirk has been one of the top quarterbacks, since he started in the league in terms of production. Most of my, good friends in coaching have coached him in the past, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell. I've had to face him several times at other spots. So I think those of us who have had to compete against him know the caliber of player that he is. He's an extremely productive player, has a lot of, really special quality as a quarterback, as a passer. And then there's so much experience that he has. He's been playing since 2012. He's been a lot of premium systems. He's faced every type of defense that you can face. So, my respect for him, goes a long way because of, again, the people that I know who have coached him, and then us having to face him at different spots. And he's still a quality player. When you see him throw the football, it doesn't take you long to realize that this guy's got real stuff, as a passer. And then when you factor in all the experience that he has, he's always been a very, very dangerous quarterback.
Wondering how, you guys face so many top teams this season, Patriots, the Rams, and Seahawks. How do you think that shaped the defense based on the quality component and learning from those teams?
I think in a big way. I think battle tested for sure. And both, I think, in the types of teams in terms of the quality of the players and then the quality of the offensive coaching. I think it's been premium through 10 games. So I think our guys have gotten a really good taste of what it's like to compete at the highest level. So I think hopefully, that experience and that battle tested will help us, here in the second half of the season.
How much of the run defense performance against Carolina was, you guys just brought it on that day and had a good performance, or you had identified some things going into that game that you thought could improve your run defense?
Yeah, Mike, I think that we just built on our performance throughout the year because I think it had been really solid. I think what was special about that performance, a special run performance was that, our tackling was the best it's been all year. And if I had one, just one thing to say. Our tackling was elite in that game. And a lot of it was because there wasn't a lot of space in the tackles, And so I think our guys did a really good job at the point of attack in that game. And then we had a lot of 2 guys, 3 guys on the ball carrier where you didn't get these individual tackles against a special runner, because he's really good. And so is Chuba Hubbard. He's really good too. So it was just a really, I think, quality performance by the whole group. And that's why I think you saw the performance. It was quality by everybody for all 4 quarters.
The same what Bryce Young did the week after, does that make you appreciate your performance even more? Something like that?
Definitely. It's just the league. It's just so hard every week. And I think what Bryce was able to do says a lot about him, because he's a good player and he responded from a tough day and then had a big day. So all of us in this league have to have our edge every week. Because every week anything can happen. And so I felt like our whole team against Carolina had the right edge, all 3 phases of our team, and it was definitely our best performance of the season.
What was the kind of reflection of, okay, there was a couple instances where you fire up the field or you get a blocked field goal and then you have to go back. Like, how did you feel like the group responded to those situations? Obviously, forced a couple turnovers.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the quality aspects of our defense so far this year, and in the bye week, looking at the self-scout, has been our sudden change defense. I think we've been quality all season, but particularly in that game, that one sequence, we took points off the board, and that sequence, blocking a field goal, but then getting the takeaway after it, that was a huge sequence because they probably have their field goal there, and then that game would have been tight. That would have been tight, and it would have been a 4th quarter game, and you never know how it's going to go. So I think our guys saw the advantage of, in a sudden change that you can make things happen. Whether it had been a 3-point, field goal there, holding them to 3, or like we did getting the takeaway and then, getting the touchdown afterwards. That's the type of defense that you need to play in those situations to hang tough and give your team a chance.
What do you think the key to that is? Like, why do you think this group has been?
Yeah, I think the composure and the connection. I think that I think up the middle of our defense, we have just a lot of experience, with DeMario, Pete, Alante, Justin, just have a lot of guys that have been through it, so I think them being able to keep their poise and kind of work inside out to everybody else. And our front's very experienced too. So I think when you have that experience, it helps you, have the right foundation, the right mindset, which is most of it. You just got to execute when the time is tough. You got to execute and keep it simple. You can't try to force something to happen. And I think having experience really helps with that.
I did my next-gen level research here. You did get to face Tyler Algier as a rookie, and this will be your first time going against Bijan. Is it the toughest duo you think in the league right now?
One of them, yeah, because I think, like you mentioned, Algiers is a hell of a player. I think he's very underrated, kind of in maybe a similar way that Rico, was, coming out of Dallas, but I think the people that have played against Tyson have that big respect for him as a back. He's just playing with, Bijan, who's one of the top runners in the league and one of the top players in the league. So it's definitely a dynamic tandem, and they complement each other, extremely well. And then they play them together quite a bit, which I think is the sign of a great tandem, So definitely one of the strongest points of their team.
Kevin specifically mentioned offensively, they knew they were taking a lot of sacks on 2nd down, but once he had the time on the bye week to sort of look, and they were setting themselves up with 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9s. Was there anything over the bye that maybe given the time to contextualize a little more you feel better about coming out now?
That we feel better about?
Just given the time to sit down and say, okay, why are we in this situation and how can we get that corrected?
Yeah. I think there's definitely there's like more specific aspects, like Kellen, I think probably alluded to within our defense. Just how we can create a couple more negative plays on 1st and 2nd down. That could be like in the red zone, for instance. How we can do that better. On some of the windows of 3rd down, maybe things that we've done at a high level, but hey, we need to do something different moving forward because that's kind of what people are going to see and what people are going to attack moving forward. Or maybe, there's something on a specific personnel grouping that we have that we really like that hasn't come to life yet. We haven't been able to get it on tape yet. But, hey, we think that moving forward it can really help us playing this specific, package, moving forward. So I think those are all elements to the bye that help you, I think, breathe a little bit and say, okay, this is going to be our course moving forward, knowing who we are a lot better. You know who you are a lot better through 10 games, and hopefully that can help you moving forward.
Someone was also saying that feels like the secondary of the last month has played a lot better. I'm just curious on your vantage point of that, and what do you think has improved?
I think we have, for sure. I thought the Rams game was a tough game for us, but I thought it was a very useful game for us moving forward in terms of learning how we need to play, especially against a premium passing attack. But I think that they're doing the little things well, starting with their alignment, starting with where their eyes go, and then playing with the right technique. Our guys that are young definitely have the right mindset. The scheme and, I would say their command of knowing what to do, and, that's not been the issue. It's just playing it right and playing it at the high level, and that's where you're going to get the playmaking, and that's where you're going to get the consistency of the playmaking. So I just think we've been a lot more consistent fundamentally, and that's led to, sounder coverage, tighter coverage, more plays being made. And again, as you guys saw, that Carolina group's got a lot of good players in it. But we've also, and I think you mentioned it, we've faced a lot of good passing attacks. So I think you factor in that experience. Some of these young guys have really been able to learn and improve through that, and hopefully that's set them up to have a good second half of the season.
It looks like when they show you on TV, your call sheets, kind of, you see some guys with huge ones. Do you have really good eyes, or are you just deliberate about what you put on your sheet? Because it definitely looks, you see some guys that it's man, there's no way you're using everything on there, but
right.
What's your process for that?
My process is I want everything on one sheet. And I think that it's kind of that. I read a book a long time ago that you should be able to put your blueprint on one page. Even if you're the CEO of an organization, you should be able to put it all on one page. And so I'm kind of that way. And I think there's an advantage that people can't see it. If you have to flip over, sometimes now they can zoom in and see some things, and that's a fact. And so I like the fact that it's hidden. But I also like the fact that it's tight. And I think that that's something I've learned, more and more, is that you got to keep it simple, to be effective. And, and then hopefully my eyes will stay with me here so that, that font doesn't have to get bigger. I'm sure it's going to have to get bigger, but we're not there yet. Yeah, that's, I've seen Sean and Dan Campbell and some guys that I know. And again, hopefully I can hang in there a little bit more. Otherwise, you'll truly become wise, once you get, once you guys, rocking those type of glasses.
Is that always been your approach with it, or has that become refined over the years? And
It's been refined, but that's kind of how I've been since I've been calling plays. Just, I kind of feel like, again, as I mentioned, keeping it tight, not just for your players, but for yourself, knowing that you have a week to prepare, and that you pour so much into it. There's no perfect plans, just perfect intentions, and you got to stick to what you do and what you know, and then be able to adjust, of course. But I think that sets the right tone for how you need to play.
I apologize for asking the defensive coach about an offensive player, but we've only seen Tyler for 2.5 games now, 2.25 games.
Yeah.
From your standpoint as an observer, how have you seen him mature from week 1 to now?
I've seen the progress from OTAs to now, and I think that's been really significant. I think you guys who have been with us have also seen it. You guys who were at scrimmages during training camp, through preseason games, that's where you trust your eyes in terms of what you're seeing. And so I feel like he's held his own, and I felt like last game was kind of a cool breakthrough that every young player needs to feel it, and for everyone else to see it and feel it. And now you just got to build on it, because it's really hard to keep going. But the best compliment you can give, and I've said this about Quincy and some of our rookies, is, holding your own is a compliment. And it also is a compliment when people can say you look like you belong. And I think that he's shown that.
Fumble recovery, Alante, rather than jump on the ball,
Yeah.
blow up Coker. Is that how you coach it? What was your...
Oh, man, such an awesome, cool, heads up, heady, situational play. Kellen showed it to our team, and hopefully people are showing it around the league. Just a super heady play by him to see that the ball's on the deck and that guy's going to try and get it, and I can't probably scoop it, so I can prevent him from scooping it. And then now I allow my teammates to go make the play. It was just such a heads-up play. One of those like glue guy winning plays that us coaches, love to teach off of, but a huge moment in the game. Because if he goes to gets it, kicks it, whatever, maybe that guy gets it, something bad happens. But, Alante really capped, I think, a special performance with a super heady play. All right, guys. Take care.
Did you do anything different using this bye week time since you had a quarterback with 2.5 career starts? Like maybe even spend more time working with him than you normally would on those off days?
No, Kellen did a good job, I think, of letting the guys catch a mental break as well as a physical break, and we were able to get the team out of here and let them recharge, get freshened back up. It's a interesting schedule because you get used to playing usually, Thursday night, a Sunday night, a Monday night, and you play a Thursday game, so you get a little bit of mini bye somewhere along the way during the season. Obviously, you play on a short week going into it, but when your schedule's set up the way ours is, where you're just playing every traditional Sunday, it was nice to get a good little break in there.
What do you think is next for Tyler's development?
Well, I think it's a daily process. I mean, this is still a young player. The learning curve is still steep. And so every day he's learning something new. And, when you get out against NFL defenses, there's going to be different pitchers. They're going to change. People are going to show you different things. And especially with young quarterbacks, they're going to try and disguise things more than they do traditionally than other quarterbacks.
How do you think he's progressed as of late?
I think he's done a really good job. Obviously saw a lot of growth from the first start out in LA to the second start in Carolina, and I anticipate him to stay on the same course.
Have you seen Tyler's feel for the pocket improve over the course of GAs to now?
I think that was one of the really big things for him early on, playing on the scout team. When you play on that scout team, that rush is really fast. So it forces you to really speed your process up, your mental process. It forces you to speed your feet up. Now, obviously, the plays can be a little bit different at times, but we try and train our guys to treat the plays as if they're our plays. So kind of put yourself into one of our plays. It's very similar to this play so that you can train your feet and your eyes.
I'm wondering how Scott Tolzien kind of plays a role into that in terms of just like individual drills and working on the footwork in those sessions as well.
Yeah, if you come watch our guys, and I know you guys are only out there for a certain portion of practice, but Scotty does a really good job, going through the progressions of, putting the spots where they can be. You only get so many reps live, but putting the spots where they are and, going through with our feet and our eyes, making sure the timing's right.
When it comes to ball security, is there some level where you just have to kind of trust the guy, like just in terms of, Tyler should do a good job keeping both hands on the ball as he's navigating through, is that just some kind of just like an innate understanding that he's going to do a good job there? Like you don't have to spend a ton of time just drilling it in.
Well, I think you're always spending time. It's one of the key fundamentals of the game, ball security. I mean, you talk about the number one statistic in all of football is turnover margin. So it's something that we preach. It's something that we drill every day on the practice field.
I mean, how do you Have you seen him develop that over the course of 10 weeks or so?
Well, hopefully it's the awareness we've created for him, and then through drill structure, helping him improve his technique, and being able to point out to him and film, in certain situations, hey, you're loose with the ball here in the pocket. Oh, hey, here's a really good example. For example, Coach Thomas put one up from the Carolina game today in the offensive meeting as we were talking about ball security, and it was a really good rep with Tyler with 2 hands. He's pulling through. It's things like that. You got to emphasize it.
Progress is like never linear, and there's ups and downs and everything like that. Is Tyler kind of, because of everything he went through in college, maybe equipped well to handle that sort of highs and lows of this business?
I think so. He's a really mature guy. It's one of the things you talk about maturity at this level, and he's been through some adversity, and all quarterbacks in our league go through adversity. Even the greatest of the great go through times where things aren't going great, and you got to stay neutral. You got to stay in the middle. You're never too high. You're never too low.
So that even applies after throwing for 282 and then
Throwing for 282 because in 2 days that's not going to matter, right? We're going to line up on Sunday against the Falcons, and that's not going to matter. What's going to matter is what we do now.
What do you guys like about Mason Tipton? And obviously he's been here earlier, but like the opportunity is going to be coming larger. Like what stood out there in camp when he was getting like a lot of reps making plays? So.
Yeah, I think you just said it. He made plays. He's got really good quickness, really good short area quickness and speed. He can get out on cuts, and when he was presented with opportunities in camp, he made plays, and that's the bottom line. Guys that can make plays.
Is there like a benefit for a receiver, like just to be in the game, snap after snap, like can it help him with like route running, learning the quarterback? Like does any of that help with like getting open and making plays?
Sure. Obviously there's chemistry between the quarterback and the receivers. Obviously we're going to be playing with, some different guys this week. So, it's one of the things we've been working on. Obviously Mason's been part of our active group for a while. So he's been getting those reps in practice with Tyler. And, we'll have other guys have opportunities. Kevin Austin, obviously that we elevated. Kevin's been out, now he gets some reps. So, creating timing, it's such an anticipation game when you talk about playing the quarterback position at a high level. You got to know when guys are coming out of breaks.
Taysom, he's 5 or 6 games back on the field. Can we start to find a little bit more of a groove? That was obviously a pretty significant injury for anybody, let alone somebody who does as much as he does. So,
Yeah.
You see is he kind of starting to find some of that?
Well, I think, obviously, it's great to have him back. We knew it would be a big piece. And then, for us, it's been an adjustment figuring out how best to use him. Obviously, like I said before, we didn't have him during training camp. So, you look at the last drive of the game, we got the ball with 7.5 minutes to go in the game, and we're able to possess the ball to end the game. And he was a big part of that. So there's things that he's really helping us and is going to continue to help us moving forward.
What do you make of Falcons' young pass rushers, Walker and Pierce?
Yeah, they got length, they got speed, they got quickness, they're book edge guys, you know what I mean? You got to be aware of them. We're going to have to do a really good job, and they obviously have done a really good job. You look at their sack numbers, one of the elite sack teams in the league, so that's going to be a challenge for us.
It seemed like Tyler was thrown with pretty good anticipation. What goes into being a good anticipatory thrower? What are the qualities and what allows someone to be good at that?
Well, I think first off, you got to have vision. You got to be able to see the field, and then you got to be able to tie your feet to your eyes. And so when your feet tie to your eyes, then it's allow the ball to come out on time. Then it becomes the accuracy thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.